Hello and welcome to Flix and Chill with me, Luke. Today, I have a very special guest, and I'm so happy he's here. It's Mr. Foster. So, Foster, take it away and please introduce yourself.
Hi, everybody. My name is Foster. I live just outside of New York City. You want me to do like my whole intro
Yeah,
spiel and
yeah, yeah,
everything?
yeah.
All right. So in the real world, I'm a high school math teacher. I have been for a couple years. In college, I majored in math. I also minored in film too. And then after I got my math degree, then I stayed an extra year and got my master's degree in teaching. So that's my sort of background.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so that's like the quick sum up. Anything else that I
Yeah.
could answer?
No, I think we're all good because I already have a question. So, you're a
Okay.
math teacher in high school.
Yes.
So, why do you hate kids?
Why do I hate kids? Why I'm like torturing them with math?
Yes, exactly.
So I've always felt like I just kind of want to be a teacher and I don't really care
Hmm.
about the subjects too much. Math just happens to be my favorite subject.
Okay.
So like in school, that was just always the easiest class for
Hmm.
me, like in high school at least.
Hmm.
In college, it's really, really hard because then you have to do even more advanced math stuff,
Yeah.
which I don't even use that anymore now that I'm only teaching high school. But yeah, so it's just my favorite subject, but I'd really be happy teaching pretty much anything if I knew
Hmm.
that those other subjects, but I just don't.
See, I hope and I think I know that you're much better than the math teacher I had in my high school because
Okay.
math until I always say, look, when it comes to basic math, I'm quick. So people always presume I'm very good at math. No, the basic one is. The moment you start to introduce alphabet into my math, this is where I like no thank you. Like I've never understood this. And also because I think there's a problem with me being behind. Like I basically got sick several times throughout the year when those subjects come up, and I always miss the basics of it. And it's hard to build on something when you don't have the basics. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
So I've always kind of lacked, especially in high school math. And
Mhm.
yeah, so therefore math, when you say high school math teacher, I'm having a Vietnam PTSD flashbacks of me almost failing a math class in 1 year. I was like, fuck me, man, just I cannot
Mhm.
fail. And it was a rough year of my life. It was not good. So I would imagine what is your approach to kids like me? Well, obviously I'm not a kid anymore, but let's say you would have somebody like me struggling very hard in your class. How would you approach it, or how do you approach it?
Okay. So the one of the hardest things about teaching is that you'll have like at least 20 kids in the classroom at
Yep.
any one time. And so um like over the course of the year you get to know each and
Hmm.
every one of them, but it's very hard to sort of cater to one student when you have to keep track
Yep.
of the like 19 other kids in the room.
Yep.
Um that being said, things I try to do, I usually so for me when I was in high school, and just in life, I'm a big introvert, so I typically didn't want to raise my hand in class, and I didn't really like, um, like volunteering or going for extra help or anything like that. So I just
Hmm.
kind of sat silently at the edge of the room and did my thing.
Hmm.
And if I didn't know how to do something, I would just kind of accept that I didn't know how to do it, and maybe I'd look it up at home after school. Um, what I try to do when I'm teaching is I'll do my spiel in front of the room, but then pretty much every class period, I float around as kids are working and I'll like go one by one to the
Hmm.
students and be like, "How's it going? Do you have any questions?" Like they probably find me a little annoying when I do it, but the thing is, I get a lot more questions that way from the quiet kids. So that's one thing I try to do, just because sometimes people have questions, they just don't like asking it in front of the whole room because then
Hmm.
it's embarrassing because you're like
Yeah.
admitting that you don't know what's going on. But
Hmm.
so that's one thing I try to do. I try to give good feedback on easy homework assignments just so kids know like, oh, here's something I can look back to this page if I need to study this topic or yada yada. I also do this is not my choice necessarily. It's just a thing I do for the school, but there's an after school extra help thing 3 days a week that I run. Um, and so kids can just drop by,
Hmm.
ask questions. And so that's something I recommend my students do as well. I don't
Hmm.
know. Did that answer your question? I could probably come
No,
up with
yeah.
some others, but
No, no, no. That I think that's actually perfect. So on average, how many kids do you actually teach?
so I teach right this year I'm teaching 4 classes
Okay.
and the class sizes are 16 is my smallest and 24 is my largest.
Mm-hmm.
which is all things considered, like in America, from my understanding, this is the first school where I've been a full-time teacher.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't have too many other schools to compare it to, but I think this is pretty good. A class size, oftentimes it gets like 30 to 40 kids even, like, which is kind of impossible to deal with if you're a teacher
Yeah.
because it's just too many kids to handle and the periods are too short to really meaningfully reach every single one of them, you know.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. No, I get it. I get it. See, here's my question, right? So, as a person not familiar with the US education system,
Mhm.
and as a person who follows like US news and seen Abbott Elementary, I come to understand that teachers have it rough in a sense where you guys are very underpaid, but also many schools still rely on you buying supplies and all that stuff out of your own pocket. So, in your experience, how true is that?
So it varies wildly by school and
Mm-hmm.
by district and by state.
Mm-hmm.
I would say on the whole, yeah, teachers are probably underpaid. And I mean, I've definitely bought some supplies for my classes before, but nothing like too extensive. Yeah, I don't. So like, I work at a school that I think I assume has a decent amount of money. I'm not really
Mm-hmm.
sure, but I couldn't just like say, hey, can I get this, and this? They're not gonna just like buy me anything, but I often will get some supplies like from the front office too. So I think in that case, my school is pretty like more fortunate than some other schools.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, like I think Abbott Elementary is pretty accurate for a lot of schools, and in a lot of schools, it's probably much worse to be honest with you, because Abbott
Mm-hmm.
Elementary kind of sanitizes it a little bit, makes it funny, you know.
Yeah, yeah.
Everything's bright and colorful.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, I don't know. Did that answer your question?
It did, it did, it did. So when
Okay.
you say you didn't buy nothing too expensive, what would you consider? Like, because to me, like, for me, this is crazy in a sense where why would I, out of my own salary, pay something to do my own work? You know what I mean?
Oh,
So like, what
okay.
did you say? What do you think? What do you say? Oh, I bought a couple of supplies, but nothing too expensive. So did it mean like
Yeah.
paper, pencils? What was that?
Well, so first off, anything that's for me, like on
Mm-hmm.
my desk, my
Mm-hmm.
supplies, I buy myself for the
Mm-hmm.
most part, unless the
Okay.
school just has them lying around. So that's one thing, but that's fair enough.
Yeah, yeah.
As far as my classes go, the first thing that's coming to my mind, we did an activity last year in one of my geometry classes where we were cutting up oranges because we were taking like the orange peels and we were using it to like prove this fact about circles.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I just went and bought a whole bunch of oranges. Like that was the kind of thing where I'm like, I don't even feel like bothering with like,
Yeah.
hey, would this school reimburse me for oranges? Because it's like too
Hmm.
too complicated to explain. I'm sure there's a couple other examples that I just can't think of off the top of my head, but
No, like orange
I
is fair enough, but like for example, like I'm talking like basics. Like, you do have
yeah,
base like I'm sorry if it's a stupid question, but like I'm
no,
just
I
trying
understand.
to like comprehend that. So like would you
Yeah,
ever have you ever bought like I don't know, paper because there was literally no paper around
so
or
not
like
at my school.
pencils.
Yeah,
Okay.
not at my school. My school has that stuff, which is very
Okay.
great. But I do know like other schools, like probably some that are not even that far away distance wise from my school, like in the city, New York City, definitely might have to. Like I know like the school where I was student teaching, the teacher that I worked with there,
Hmm.
bought a bunch of pencils like at the beginning of the year just so he could like have them in his room in case the students needed them because like often the students wouldn't bring pencils or have pencils, that sort of thing. And then he just kind of like had a stash.
Hmm.
Um, uh, I don't know. To be honest with you, I don't think there's too many supplies that I would need to buy for
Hmm.
this school because most of the kids haven't have enough money to get their own like binders and pencils and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So I teach at a private school, which
Hmm.
so at least as I gather, most of the students would have to pay a good
Hmm.
amount of money to go to the school anyways. So it's just not the sort of student body that would um, be hurting for money enough to not be able to afford pencils, if that makes sense.
No,
But
yeah, it does.
yeah, like in certain public schools, like in New York City, that
Hmm.
can definitely be the case, I think. It's again, it just varies so wildly. But my school, again, is pretty fortunate, I think,
Okay.
all things considered.
All right. That's okay. I think I get the gist of it because yeah, like that's the other thing about America. It's so different. even within a state, isn't it? Like it depends,
Mhm.
like as you said, district to district. So some districts
Mhm.
might be better off, some not that great,
Yeah.
and then just people struggle. So, damn. All right.
Yeah, I mean, I can explain the pay thing too. Like part
Okay.
of the complaints about teacher pay is um so the biggest benefit by far of being a teacher is you don't have to work in the summer.
Yeah.
Although the thing is, of course, that some teachers don't make enough money that they have a second job anyways. So like it's kind of interesting hearing like what other teachers do in their summers, like
Mm-hmm.
because people do all sorts of different things. A lot of teachers will do tutoring. I even did like a little summer class for like 2 weeks for my school last
Mm-hmm.
summer as well. Um, but what it is teachers are like in general very highly educated. Like you have to be in order to be able to teach your subject
I
and
would hope
to like
so.
break it down simply, you know.
Yeah.
Many teachers will have a master's degree too, which is like the
Mm-hmm.
next level up from a bachelor's degree in the
Yeah.
US. Um, and I'm gonna throw out some numbers. I have no idea, but like in the
Mm-hmm.
US, it could range from like maybe even as low as like 20, 30, 40K and on the lowest end per
Mm-hmm.
year, and then on the upper end, maybe like 110, 120. It would be
Mm-hmm.
the huge range, I think, across the country. But if you compare it, I think, to other jobs that require that level of education from you, I think it's typically higher.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's sort of what it is. Maybe like the indignity of it that you study so much and are doing it with a good heart to like help kids
Yeah.
essentially. And also that combined with teaching is just a more all-consuming job than you would think it is. What it is everybody thinks they knows what being a teacher is like, or
Mm-hmm.
they think they know what being a teacher is like because we've all been in school, we've all seen our teachers. But the thing is, you're only seeing about 10% of it.
Yeah.
Most of what goes on is behind the scenes. And also think of it this way, during the school day, you're teaching for the most part. When are you preparing your lessons for the next day? Because you
Mm-hmm.
have to prepare like hours worth of material. Think about how long it took you to prepare like a 10-minute presentation when you were in school.
Yeah.
Imagine doing an hour-long presentation for a class, but multiply that by however many classes you teach, and you
Mm-hmm.
have to do it every single day of the week.
Mm-hmm.
You can't always do it during the day because you're teaching and because you
Yeah.
have other random tasks that come your way. So you have to do it after school sometimes. And so, especially for first year teachers, I think, and this was me last year, it was a whole lot of like, I'm teaching during the day, it's a lot of work. And then I just come home and I do even more work. And then I go to bed and then I just teach the next morning. So even though you get summers off, it's like you almost need it because
Yeah.
you're working so nonstop throughout the school year. But I think like the more you teach, the easier it gets because you're able to reuse some of your materials and you've taught it before, so you're
Mm-hmm.
more comfortable with it. But yeah, that's part of what it is it's like perhaps in general around the country, the pay might not match the
Mm-hmm.
insane, overwhelming amount of effort that's put into it. So I think that's where the frustration comes from teachers' end.
And I would imagine the obviously higher up, those people who make, or those teachers who would make around 100,000, they will be either in private, or would it be high school? Wouldn't it be college? Because there would probably be like some like again, as a non-American, I would imagine those would be like the prestigious like colleges or universities, like I don't know, Harvard, or Caltech or something like that.
Yeah, so I have no idea about what college
Okay,
professors make,
okay.
but I do know there's another issue with college, which is a lot of professors are adjunct professors, meaning they only teach like a couple classes probably instead of a full-time load because they're
Mm-hmm.
not hired as full-time professors, and I feel like that might sometimes be used as
Mm-hmm.
a reason to not give them the full pay they deserve, question
Mm-hmm.
mark. I don't want to like step into territory I'm not familiar with, but um
I
yeah, I
see.
think that can happen. Also, it's like then it becomes a battle as to which adjunct professor gets to teach the classes
Mm-hmm.
because then there's only so many classes and there's a lot of professors who would like to be able to teach those classes. So I don't know. There's
Mm-hmm.
just kind of issues everywhere, I suppose.
No, I see. I see. Okay, before we move on, one last question. If
Mhm.
you had the power to fix, let's say, what you presume or what you perceive in your several years of experience as the biggest issue right now in your profession, what would you fix?
Smaller class sizes, I think, is the biggest one. And I think my class sizes, all things considered, again, compared to like what I understand to be the case in other schools, I
Mm,
think like around 20 students is very fair. But honestly, like the smaller the class size, the better it is in about 500 different ways because if there are any behavior issues, it's impossible when you have like 40 kids in a room.
yeah.
But if you have like 15 kids in a room, that'd be amazing because it's
Hmm.
like you can kind of like talk to them at their level too. It's not just like you in front of a huge mass of children. You know what I mean? And
Hmm.
there's also, like what I was saying earlier, you can't necessarily reach every single individual student every single day in a class of 40, but like in a class of 15, you could.
Hmm.
And you could kind of tailor your teaching even more so to the individual students.
Hmm.
And you get to know your students quicker, blah, 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 blah. So I think that tends to be like from teachers, one of the
Hmm.
biggest things that's mentioned is smaller class sizes.
Okay, understood. See, like I come from, I was raised and born and also studied most of my life in Czech Republic. Therefore, well, I don't know if therefore, but I'm used to class sizes of around 30. There was always like
Hmm.
in every single class, yeah, there was like 28-ish kids.
Yeah.
Obviously we sometimes less, sometimes more, but yeah,
Hmm.
just around 30. But I think I have a feeling it's because, our parents have been procreating much more than we are. So I have a feeling those smaller class sizes might be coming eventually because people are having less kids. So,
Sure.
all right. Okay. So, besides movies, which obviously we'll talk about later, what would you say are or do you have any time for any other hobbies besides movies? I'll ask you this.
Yeah, I'm a hobby hopper, so like I get really into things for a
Mm,
little while and then I kind of bounce around. So here's I just made a little list here of some things I like. So movies, of course, is number one.
mm-hmm.
That's the thing that's stuck with me my whole life. I do like reading, but I'm not like a reader in the sense that I don't like read everything that comes out. I just like what I like, so my taste is probably super basic.
Okay.
But I do like to read. I like music. I like listening to music, not playing.
Yeah.
I like to play chess. I like to, let's
Ooh.
see, I like to draw.
Mm-hmm.
I drew all throughout high school,
Mm-hmm.
um, and have done it sort of sporadically since then. Um, let's see what else. Sometimes I get into running whenever I'm in like my motivated, I'm gonna be the best man I can be phase, and then it
Mm-hmm.
lasts like a couple months, and then it stops for a while, and then I get back into it every so often. Um, yeah, but then I usually just like get really, really interested in like a topic or something for like a couple weeks, and then I kind of move on to like a
Mm-hmm.
couple weeks I get really, really into geography, and then I try and like learn all the capitals and like where all the countries are and stuff like that. And
Mm-hmm.
then like the next week I'll move on to something else, or like especially over COVID, like one week I was like, I want to learn how to juggle. So then I just taught myself how to juggle, you know? So like weird things, I just get like really
Mm-hmm.
bored of the same thing, and I just I kind of want to know everything. I'm just one of those people.
Yeah. Would
So
you still
like,
be able to juggle?
yep, I can.
Nice. Nice.
Not
Also,
like fancy, but just like
yeah.
three balls, basic one. Yeah.
I mean, we all got to start somewhere. So you can juggle much more balls than I can. So, I'll just leave it at that. Also you mentioned chess. What's your elo? What's your
Oh
strength?
man. I give me a second, I'll check.
And for anybody that doesn't know, elo just means your chess strength, which is a number, that's calculated is actually like a very complicated formula, how it's calculated. But yeah, everybody who's kind of into chess knows.
Yeah, so I use just chess.com,
Mm-hmm. Same.
and my it's like it's bounced up like by
Mm-hmm.
hundreds up and down. Right now I think it's around 1200.
Nice. What was your highest?
Trying to think. Let's see. I'm trying to look at my stats right here. My highest was 1450, it looks like.
Wow. That's
Um,
that's good.
but like I don't know if you can see this.
Yeah,
It's like
yeah.
gone up and down quite a bit. So like
Mm-hmm.
that was like my peak a little while ago, I guess, in like COVID times.
Yeah, yeah.
It was, if you see the dip was
Mm-hmm.
right before COVID, and then I went all the way up over the course of that year when I was just bored at home with nothing to do, and I played a ton. And then since then it's kind of dwindled a little bit. Actually, another thing I
Nice.
do at my school is I help run the chess club too,
Oh,
which
nice.
as of right now only meets once a month, but that's something I do
Mm-hmm.
as
What's your
well.
favorite chess opening? For white and black.
I usually just move like one pawn 2 spaces forward in the center. That's all I ever really do for the most part. I don't get that
Okay.
adventurous.
I see. So
I'm
you're
so
into chess, but you're not really like studying openings and stuff like that.
I'm into strategy more than I am into memorizing
Tactics.
lines.
Tactics. Yeah.
So I feel like if I get a little bit further along, then I would
Hmm.
love to know some of like the opening lines. But I think like at the level where I am now, as
Hmm.
long as I'm playing like good solid chess where I'm like not leaving any hanging pieces and I know like how to trap other people's pieces well enough, I feel like that's usually enough to get me by.
Hmm.
Um, and I know like some of the basic things in the openings that you're not supposed to do,
Yeah.
blah 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 blah. But I don't know. Do you have something that you do you play chess? It sounds like you do.
No, I do. Well, I used to play a bit more, but now I stopped because just online chess is hard. But no, I need to get back to it. I been doing a lot of puzzles on chess.com. So that my
It's
peak rating was like 2,300 in puzzles. So
oh.
that's pretty like again, it's just puzzles though. Like my games, like I now I'm around 1,100 because I only play like 30 games. So I
Okay.
need to actually play a bit more. But I would actually like to, like I need to take you on at some point because
Sure.
because here's the thing, I don't like to play against random people. I like to play against people who I know because then I, believe that you're not cheating. Because
Okay.
like if yeah, I've only played 30 games, but even I've already encountered one cheater who didn't know what he was cheating, and then a day or two later I receive a message. Oh, we discovered this account you played this game against, was cheating, so therefore we're giving you your ELO pack for that game. I was like, I see. Okay. So, all right. So, okay,
Yeah.
chess. Well, you can wait for that invite as soon. So you mentioned you're outside of New York, so we can leave it nondescript. That's all fine.
hmm
So, if I were to ask you, hey, I'm going also outside of New York for a week. I'm going there for a holiday. What would you recommend me to see? What would you, where would we go? Where would we go to grab something to eat? What would you recommend?
Okay, so I am such an introvert and I just like to stay home most of the time, so I'm the wrong person to ask for this kind of stuff. But the one thing I can think of is, and this is where I would like bring anybody who's into movies and have
Hmm.
brought a couple people who are into movies. There's an AMC in Lincoln Square in which
Hmm.
is in New York City, which is the largest movie theater screen in the country, and it's the second largest in the world after I think one that's in like Germany or something.
Oh.
And it's just huge and it's just so cool to see. Like
Hmm.
it's just like it's so massive. It's like you just walk in and you're like looking up because it's so huge. Um,
Is that
that's
the
what that's
IMAX? Is that the
it's
IMAX
an I
screening?
it is an IMAX, yeah. But like there's a
Mm.
few IMAX screens in the city, but like none of them are this big. It's like
Hmm.
most IMAX is just like, oh wow, that's a big screen. This is like, oh my gosh, this is a big screen.
I am
Um,
pretty sure our friend Shane mentioned that to me that that's where he saw Oppenheimer, and I was
yes.
so jealous. I was like,
Well, come to New York.
yep. I'm always like I've already talked to Shane, I already talked to Rowan and Heath, and I'll say it again. I am so jealous when you guys meet up in real life and go to see movies in advance, like the Zone of Interest. You know, that's not playing here until beginning of February. So,
Oh my
and you
gosh.
guys have
Yeah.
seen it. So,
Yeah, this is like the best thing about living in New York. And to be honest, I didn't take advantage of it until like maybe 2 years ago.
mhm,
I just don't even think it occurred to me that I had access to all this great movie stuff. But I mean, I suppose it makes sense, but it's amazing like to be a
mhm,
movie fan and to actually have this stuff near me when I want it.
mhm.
Yeah, kind of crazy.
All right. So wait, so if I were to come and visit, we just don't go outside. We just stay in.
We just watch movies.
All right. You know what? I'll take it. I'll take
Yeah.
it. So with that, let's move to a quick game, this or that. Now it's quite simple. I'll give you two options and you answer which one would you prefer. So I have a feeling I know how this is gonna go, but I'll ask it anyway. Big party
Okay.
or small gathering?
Oh, small gathering.
It kind of makes sense, doesn't it?
Yep.
Even though like you for all the talks about you being introvert, you do a lot of shit talking on your podcast. Like so I'm like, is he that introverted or is he like he's the like silent killer? He's like
S-
he's just always in the background, and then there's a chance presents, to himself, to him, as like he takes it. And I'm like, yep, that's
Yeah.
Foster right there.
So like I'm a big introvert, but like I can turn it on when I need to. So like when
Hmm.
I'm on these podcasts or when I'm teaching or whatever, but then
Hmm.
when I'm not doing one of those things, I am just dead silent for the rest of the day and I'm just like in my zone doing my own thing.
Hmm.
Um yeah, like for so like the introvert definition doesn't mean that I'm quiet, it just means that I get my energy from downtime rather than
Yeah,
socializing.
yeah.
Yeah.
And look, that's perfectly valid. Like we all need some downtime and time to ourselves because you need to recharge the batteries, especially with
Yeah.
having a couple, quite a few hobbies and hobby jumping. It comes in handy.
Mhm.
So, iOS or Android?
Okay, so I was an Android person and in theory still am. I think I had a Samsung Galaxy for a few years and I really
Hmm.
liked this phone actually better than the iPhone I had before it.
Hmm.
The only thing that was so annoying about it was texting other people who had iPhones. It just caused so many issues and then it's so hard to sync things like music and that sort of thing between
Hmm.
because I have a Mac computer which I've had no issues with.
Hmm.
But so like it was annoying, but like I think a year or two ago I caved and I got a new iPhone instead when it was time to change phones.
Hmm.
Um, which like everything about the Samsung Galaxy I like a little bit more than this iPhone I have right now, but it's just the texting thing and being able to text from my computer or my phone. I
Hmm.
just like stuff like that, and it's like it's all Apple's fault because they're evil and they're trying to, make their own little ecosystem where you have to only buy their products. It's so annoying, but it is what it is. So Android in theory, but I actually have an iPhone.
Yeah. Have you experienced the infamous green text shame?
Yes, I have when I
Hmm.
had an Android, which
Yep.
that wouldn't bother me too much, but I just wish like I can't see the green itself. Who cares? It's that
Hmm.
like when someone does the little thumbs up or thumbs down reactions on the text, instead it says Foster Harlfinger liked this message, and then it quotes the whole text message instead of actually giving it a thumbs up.
Really?
It's like yeah. Like when someone in the group chat has an Android.
Hmm.
Maybe it doesn't do that anymore. I don't know, but I remember like a couple years ago at least, it would like manually say who liked or thumbs up or thumbs down or hearted every single text, and it just cluttered up everything. It was very obnoxious, which felt like a ruse by Apple to just bully you into getting their products, and I guess it worked for me.
I mean, which it is. So, like, let's face it. Like, Apple just
Yeah,
needs more money. That's because that's what they're
yeah,
lacking. Money.
exactly. They're hurting. Yes.
Yeah. Tea or coffee?
Tea.
Oh, nice. What kind of tea?
Yeah. I drink English breakfast tea. That's just my go-to. But
Wow.
basically like any black teas kind of taste the same to me. I'm not like an expert by any means.
Hmm.
It is a pleasant drink
Fair
on a
enough.
cold day.
Hmm.
I'm okay
Mon
with coffee though, just to say, sorry
Okay.
to interrupt, but
No, no.
in the past year or two, I've been getting more into coffee. Usually what I do is, because like I go in the city a lot. That's usually where I
Hmm.
watch movies, and so I'm just kind of like floating around in the city and don't always have something to do. So I'll like pop into Starbucks and I'll just like try something new. So
Hmm.
like I've been slowly getting into coffee. That's all I'll say. Go ahead. What were you gonna say?
Well, on that, I'll just say, you know, if you don't want to go too much into coffee, stay away from specialty coffee because that was my COVID hobby I picked up and never, yeah, it's hard to go back from specialty coffee, especially if you find yourself fancying like a nice African light roasts, like beans. Oh my God. Them, I'll say them Kenyan or Ethiopian beans just there's an it's not everybody's cup of tea, oh, or coffee, but really nice, really nice.
Okay.
Money or free time?
Free time.
Okay. So you're like, all good in money, so you just need a bit more free time. That's it.
I, y- well, all good in money. We'll see, TBD. But
Yes.
uh, for me, I feel like I am very happy with like the things I have. Like I'm just
Hmm.
looking around my room and like I like all of my things, but
Hmm.
like I would rather have like weeks to myself where I could just like sit and read a book. I feel like would be more valuable than any item I could buy.
Hmm.
Um,
Hmm.
because like I'm looking at like right in front of me, I'm looking at my bookshelf and I'm just looking at all of these books and it's like um, who cares if I have the money to buy this stack of 5 to 10 books when I don't have the free time to read any of them? You know what I
Yep.
mean? Um, yeah, I just think there's so many things I want to do in my life,
Hmm.
and a good amount of them don't cost that much money.
Hmm.
So I don't know.
And it might be just my perception, so please tell me if I'm wrong. But you don't strike
Mhm.
me as the type who needs a lot of things.
I don't need a lot of things, no. I have a lot of movies and I have a lot of books, that kind
Yeah.
of stuff I like.
Hmm. Hmm.
Uh I don't need a lot of things, but I do like nice things. Like I like to like take my time with some. This is how I feel. I feel like there's two ways of being frugal. One way is to just not buy a lot of stuff,
Hmm.
or to buy cheap stuff. And the other way is and this is what I try to do, is I take my time to buy
Hmm.
just one version of something that's a little bit more expensive, but is going to last me a long time. So that's what I try
Yes.
to do. That's my type of frugal.
The Charles, what is it? The Charles Dickens, shoes thing. Like, the poor man buys one pair of shoes for 20 golden coins and then it lasts him for a year and then he needs to replace them. But the rich man only, can buy the nice shoes for 50 golden coins, but
Yeah.
they will last, maybe 5 to 10 years.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. No, no, no. I actually agree with that. Like, it's exactly the same. I don't need a lot of stuff. However, when I buy something, I try to buy something quite nice that's gonna last me for a long, long time. But yeah,
Yep.
honesty or other people's feelings.
Honesty.
Ooh, that surprises me.
As in like would I lie to protect someone's feelings, or would I want someone to lie to me to protect my feelings?
Not even lie. No, 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 not even lie. It surprised me in a way that you're such a wholesome guy. Like you're such a like I always think of like for example you and Rowan are like you are like the most wholesomest people I've always listened to. So it's like not lie, but it just I always thought yeah they would much rather just not necessarily tell the entire truth, not to hurt anybody's feelings. Hmm.
Oh yeah. So part of that is just like the podcast sheen, because every time
Yeah.
I'm on one of the podcasts, I'm like putting on a little
Mm-hmm.
front, but I'm actually a very bitter and mean person off camera. No, no, no. I always value honesty. That's like a
Mm-hmm.
it's like if I'm thinking of traits I value in people, that's like right at the top for me.
Mm-hmm.
And um yeah, honesty in a lot of ways. First of all, in terms of just not lying and telling someone honestly, like if something is wrong, like I will tell you if you have like a food on your face,
Mm-hmm.
that sort of thing. Like if you like that
Yeah.
kind of thing. But also just being like honest with yourself about things you like. Like
Mm-hmm.
I've tried in the past couple years to be more honest about like I used to like 5 years or so ago like be kind of embarrassed about which movies or
Mm-hmm.
songs or books or whatever I liked, because I was like, oh, they'll think that's weird or whatever. So like when
Mm-hmm.
people would ask me my favorite movie, I would pick like a favorite movie, but
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't say like my number one or two, because I felt like they don't care about that movie. I'll just pick something like The Dark Knight or whatever that they all
Mm-hmm.
know and can get on board with. But like in the past few years, I've decided I'm never doing that again, because I have to sort of be honest with myself
Mm-hmm.
about like what my favorite things are. That's just one example. I'm take that thing that I just said about movies and kind of transfer it over to other aspects of my life too, where I'm trying to just be sort of honest
So
all the
you
time.
so you basically like coming into your own power.
Yeah, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, there's this quote. I want to say it's a C.S. Lewis quote. It's something uh like if you're trying to be original, you're probably not. I mean, I'm butchering the quote, but it's like if
Mm-hmm.
you try hard to be an original person or an original thinker, you're probably gonna fail. But if you make like honesty your goal, like you just be honest with yourself and with other people at all times, you're gonna be an original person without even trying. That
Mm-hmm.
was a quote that I read like a few years ago that really stuck with me, which is like stop trying to be like unique or special. Just be honest with yourself, and you're gonna kind of come into that naturally anyways.
Yeah.
Because like we are all unique and have our own original thoughts and feelings and
Mm-hmm.
everything.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. That's kind of my mindset.
And that's the purpose of this, to actually get to know you and get to know that unique mindset. So I do appreciate that. That's
Sure.
awesome. Summer or winter?
Winter.
Oh, okay. Why?
Um, well, so summer in the sense that I get my free time, but
Mm-hmm.
like
Mm-hmm.
temperature wise, I actually really like winter. I love my favorite feeling is it's cold outside, but I'm all bundled up and warm and cozy. So like I love blankets. I love hoodies. I love sweatshirts. I love feeling warm.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Drinking my teas. I just that feeling is very cozy to me.
So
Whereas like I hate sweating, so
yeah, yeah. So if I understand you correctly, it's winter, but only if you're inside, cuddle up with like
well,
blankets
of
and getting
course,
cozy.
yeah. Well,
So you're
also
not
if
gonna go
it's
outside and like build a snowman or just enjoy the snow, nothing like that.
I'm gonna enjoy it from looking outside my window.
I see. And to be fair, that's a respectable way how to enjoy snow because yeah, I'm way past of like enjoying like luckily where I'm we get snow like twice, maybe for like 2 weeks, like twice a year, maybe if that. So pretty good. But also it's cold.
Yep.
Probably the most just you know one of the hardest questions. Ninjas or pirates?
Ninjas or pirates?
Mm-hmm.
Oh man, that's a thinker.
I know, right?
Those are pretty dead even for me. There's not one that's jumping out. I'm
Okay.
gonna so frame it differently then. Is it which one I would rather be or which one I enjoy watching or
That's again
because
like
it
it's totally up to you. If you many people have taken it as I would rather be ninja or I would rather be pirate. But if you
okay,
would like to interpret it, I prefer to watch movies about pirates than ninjas. You can take it that
okay.
way.
I would rather be a ninja because I don't want to be on a boat because I would rather not be like in the middle of the ocean because that's just kind of like a fear of mine.
Ah.
Um, uh, I don't want to like get thrown overboard or be shipwrecked or whatever.
Hmm.
Uh, which I would rather watch. I mean, I'm just thinking of Pirates of the Caribbean, and I can't
Yep.
really think of any ninja specific movies. Like I can think of martial arts movies, but I can't really
Hmm.
think of ninja movies. The only thing that's coming to mind is Daredevil season 2 with all the ninjas there. I don't know if there's any others jumping out to you as I'm talking, but
There is a movie from 2009, I want to say, called The Ninja Assassin, which actually
haven't
was
seen it.
pretty decent. Like it's a decent well, you appreciate decent action B movies. So I think you might actually appreciate that one.
Okay.
So there's nobody, I don't think there's anybody, I don't remember anybody kind of famous there, but it was like a Hollywood production or like pretty decent production. So there might be somebody, one or two people I'm missing out on, but wasn't a great movie by any means.
So I'll say I would rather be a ninja, but I'd rather watch stuff about pirates.
So, since we've talked about ninjas and pirates now, what about last question? Free will or destiny?
Um, that's a bigger question.
Hmm.
Too too many things that I won't get into on a podcast, but I would say both is my short answer, and
Ooh,
that that might be that might be all I want to get into.
that's
I think we can make our own choices, but I
hmm
think um there is a way in which some things are
hmm.
that's I don't know. That's too vague, I understand, but um
I think I kind of can see where you're trying not to go, and I'll respect that, and I'll let's not go there. That's fine. That's perfectly fine. So I know you're a wholesome guy, but do you have some hot takes?
Oh, well, my hot take is also kind of wholesome. I c- I don't know. I'm not like into politics or anything, so
Hmm.
I'm not gonna have some like
Hot takes. Yeah,
like
yeah.
I just don't have that. But I'm sure I have better hot takes than this. But my wholesome hot take is traffic is not that bad.
Oh, okay.
And I would extend it even to like waiting in lines. Like if you're like at Starbucks or something, if you're waiting in a line and it's taking like 10-15 minutes, like my answer is just who cares, basically, unless you're running late for something. Then I
Hmm.
totally understand because you're like in a rush. But like if you don't have anywhere to be, like it's just like on your day off and you're just in traffic, like especially now when you can have like a podcast playing in the car or you're listening
Hmm.
to music or whatever. I'm just enjoy sitting is sort of my view is like we're often like rushing around so much that I kind of actually appreciate when I'm forced to stand in line or sit in traffic because it's kind of humbling in a way because you're so like go, go, go. Especially me living in New York, I'm just like constantly on the move, basically, is how it feels. That it's almost like the universe giving you like a few minutes of silence just to yourself, I think is kind of how it feels to me.
Hmm.
Um, so
Hmm.
yeah, that's my hot take.
All right. Yeah, like look, yeah, I'm not gonna defend traffic, especially, but yeah, podcasts definitely, that make the traffic much more bearable. Like,
Hmm.
you put on somebody like you enjoy and just they talk about a variety of, movies, politics, whatever you want to talk about, and just yeah, and just listen.
Hmm.
So, and I had a job before what I do now, and where I traveled pretty much all over Scotland. So I got into podcasting big time there, like listening to podcasts big time there, because after like a year, you get sick and tired of your music.
Hmm.
Like, no matter how varied your taste is, then you hear the same songs on repeat, and after you're like, God damn it, I need a break from this. So I got into listening to podcasts and yeah, never stopped. All
Yep.
right. So now this is out of the way, we can move to the Flix part of this podcast. So, and I'm looking forward to this. Foster, tell me, what is the last new movie you rated 5 out of 5 for the purpose of this conversation that it would be any 2020 plus movie?
The last one I rated 5 out of 5 was The Holdovers, um,
Ah, yes.
which I've seen twice now this year. But that's my
As you
favorite
should.
movie. Yeah, that's my favorite movie of last year, 2023.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, it's just great.
I finally watched it with my girlfriend the other week, actually, and just loved it. It was
Yeah.
such a great movie. Like, I knew, oh, well, knew. I suspected I'm gonna like it, but it just hit me in all the good ways. And yeah, I, s- I know it's probably not gonna happen, but seeing, because she is a front runner. What's I want
Yeah,
to say
Divine
Ravina?
Joy
Yeah,
Randolph.
yeah, Divine. I don't know why I always call her Ravina. I know there's like a weird thing with her name, but I always like mix it up. Yes, forgive me. But I'm hoping Paul Giamatti would walk, away with the Oscar, but I know it's not gonna happen. But it would be kind of cool. That'd be kind of cool.
It's like it's between him and Killian, basically.
Yeah, and I think Gillian has the momentum. Again, like it's kind of like the best actress category, like because now effectively it's between Emma Stone and Lily Gladstone.
Hmm.
And literally there, I'm happy either way. I'm probably like, Academy will probably choose Lily Gladstone to pat themselves on the back and be like, hey, look what we did. We fine, we cool with everybody. Look at us. And not to say she doesn't deserve it. She definitely does. Like she is magnificent in Killers of the Flower Moon. Like just she is. Just, Emma Stone in Poor Things is also just wow.
Hmm.
That's yeah. Anyway, what is the last teen movie you rated 5 out of 5? And again, for the purpose of this podcast, anything in between 2003 and 2019.
So the last one is a rewatch that I had seen like 10 plus years ago and just barely remembered any of it. And I don't even think I really appreciated it at all when
Hmm.
I first watched it. But How to Train Your Dragon. Um,
Oh, the first
and
one.
I, yeah, the first one. And
Hmm.
then I had never seen two and three, and I watched those as well.
Hmm.
Which for me, it would go 5 stars, 4.5, then 4 stars, for those three movies. Um, yeah, as far as like a first time watch, I didn't have a single first time watch from 2003 to 2019 that I've given 5 stars since I started rating on Letterboxd. So I would have to go like all the way back,
Wow.
like 5 years ago to like 2019, basically,
Hmm.
is when I would have to go back. But yeah, How to Train Your Dragon, I watched and loved it so much. It made me cry a lot when I watched it because I thought it was I feel like they capture the with Toothless the Dragon, they capture so well the feeling of having a pet.
Hmm.
Um like better than any movie I've ever seen, better than any movie, book, anything.
Hmm.
Um and it's just very special. And like I have a cat that looks a lot like Toothless because
Oh.
he's a small black cat and he has really big eyes and he like likes to, like annoy me and like come and snuggle up with me, and it really reminded me of Toothless when I
Hmm.
watched the movie. And so it was like I don't think I'd ever really appreciated my cat enough, to be honest with you, until I watched this movie. And I'm like, this is my best friend, and he's always there for me when I have like a really long day at work and I come home and I get to see this one thing that loves me unconditionally. It's just a very special thing that the movie captures. And on top of that, Hiccup is such a great character that I relate to because I'm a skinny white boy, and he's got his daddy issues that he's working through with Gerard Butler that really moved me as well.
Hmm.
And also, the movie looks great. It's
Hmm.
Roger Deakins is a visual consultant for How to Train Your Dragon, which is kind of interesting. But also, it has like the most amazing score I've ever heard, which is John Powell's How to Train Your Dragon score. And since I watched it like a year ago, um, I have been listening to that score like nonstop, and still like every single week, those tracks I'm listening to, and it is quickly rising up to be like almost my favorite score of all time. It's like top three for
Wow.
me right now. Like the sort of untouchable scores are obviously like Lord of the Rings and Harry
Mm-hmm.
Potter, and
Mm-hmm.
not for me Star Wars because that's not my franchise, but like
Mm-hmm.
for a lot of people, for me, How to Train Your Dragon is right up there with those untouchable ones at this point. Um, it's so good. I
Mm-hmm.
love this movie.
Yeah, like it's been a minute since I've seen it. I only watched it once, and yeah, I still need to watch the third one, so I am due for a rewatch. Also, what is your cat's name?
Sebastian.
Sebastian. That's a very human-like name for a
Yeah.
cat. It's a yeah,
I like
that's cute.
I'm a fan of the human names for animals.
Fair enough. I'm actually, and nobody knows this from the Seattle people, but I'm actually adopting a cat right now, and she is due to arrive this Tuesday, actually next following Tuesday, and her name is Smudge, and
Smudge.
yeah, Smudge, because she's like a white cat with like a lot of like smudges, mainly all over her face, and she's adorable, and she's almost 3 years old, so she's still kind of tiny. So I cannot wait to have her here. It's gonna be awesome.
Nice.
Yeah. And so, speaking of you, what is the last old movie, anything, 1974 and older, you'd give 5 out of 5?
Did we do adult movie yet? From
Oh, I
75 to
always
oh
skip
02?
that. I always skip that.
Come
See?
on, Luke.
I
Pull
know.
yourself together, man.
Yes, I'll do better. I need to be better.
Okay.
So, what's the
Okay.
last adult movie correctly spotted by Foster here? 2002 to 1975.
Okay. So if I'm going rewatch Dog
Mm-hmm.
Day Afternoon, I think at like a 4 star or 4.5, and I bumped it up to 5 stars after rewatching it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, which is just like it's the greatest heist movie of all time. It's
Yep.
fantastic. It's my favorite Al Pacino performance.
Mm-hmm.
Everything about that movie is perfect.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm going first time watch, I have to go all the way back to January 2021, which is
Wow.
the last time because I don't give 5 stars like too
Mm-hmm.
freely. I give them like a
Mm-hmm.
few times a year. Ordinary People,
Oh,
the
okay.
1980 Best Picture winner, which is like maybe like between that and The Holdovers, you're getting a vibe of the stuff that gets to me, like
Mm-hmm.
that, Dead Poet Society, Good Will Hunting, those kind of movies for like sad, like depressed, like teenage slash 20 something men.
I was
Those kind
gonna
of things are
I was
gonna
gonna
get to
ask,
me.
is everything okay at home? Like, do we worry about Foster? It's all good, all good.
Everything is fine at home. I'm just like an emotional guy.
I see. No, I still haven't seen Ordinary People, just to touch on that. But I heard good things. But Dog Day Afternoon, Al Pacino in his prime, that's hard to beat.
Hmm.
Have you seen Serpico yet?
I have, yes.
Yeah, that's also one of the great ones. And also, not to brag or anything, in 2012, I had a flatmate for about 3 weeks, and this guy then just happened, just drops a bomb that says, "Have you ever watched Star Trek?" I was like, "No, not yet," because at the time I haven't. So I'm married to this woman in New York, and she was his niece, and Serpico's real life guy, Serpico's they
Oh.
based on in real life. It was his niece. So apparently he talked to him a few times, and like he asked him about a movie and how he thought Al Pacino did, and he was like, yeah, and it was even much worse for him, like at the time, because for those that don't know, Serpico is about this one cop who doesn't want to be crooked cop in the basically where the crooked cop was the default, and yeah, and apparently it was much harder for than the even movie suggests, and no, and he loved Al Pacino in his as himself really. So just yeah, that's kind of cool.
Yeah.
I lost it. One day I emailed the guy just to see how he's doing, and the email bounced back. So I'm just hoping he's doing fine. Just yeah, you never want to see that bounce back. It's just like, oh, this
Yeah.
email address no longer exists. I'm like, oh, I really
Mm.
hope everything is good with good old Terry. Anyway, so now we can move to the last old movie you rated 5 out of 5, so 74 and older.
Okay. The last rewatch that I rated 5 out of 5, like I bumped it up. I actually watched this, I think the day after Dog Day Afternoon or the
Hmm.
day before. Taking of Pelham 123,
Oh,
the original from 74, which just makes the cut of being an old movie.
hmm, hmm.
Is so good. It's just like perfect tension from like minute one till the end. And
Hmm.
Robert Shaw is such a good villain. And then also it has like the coolest final shot. It's so hilarious and amazing and funny. If you have you seen it?
Yes.
It's such a good final shot.
Yes, it
Um,
is.
if I'm going first time watch, there were a few like older movies from like the 20s and 30s that I watched for the first time in this past year.
Hmm.
Bride of Frankenstein, I gave 5 stars. The Cameraman and Sherlock Jr. from Buster Keaton, those I also gave
Yes.
5 stars. I watched a whole lot of Buster Keaton movies this last summer. That was like my project for myself.
Hmm.
And I watched like all of his silent features at least.
Hmm.
And a bunch of his shorts too. And so yeah, I like that era a lot too. So those are some of the recent old movies that I gave 5 stars.
Okay. And that's actually a nice segue to what would you say is your favorite movie decade?
Oh, okay. So my favorite movie decade, I'm giving you a couple different answers for this because
Okay.
um like if you just asked me to like gun to my head real quick, I'd probably say like 70s or 80s or something. But then I
Hmm.
actually looked like at my Letterboxd because they can tell you what your average
Yeah.
highest rated decade is. So my highest average rating is for the 1950s.
Hmm.
Um, but I think that's just because I haven't seen as many movies in the 1950s as I have seen in the past couple decades. So like
Hmm.
I've only seen the great movies from the
Yeah. Yeah.
1950s for the most part. So like in there I have Singing in the Rain, 12 Angry Men. These are the ones I gave 5 stars or four and a
Hmm.
half. Ikiru, Paths of Glory, 400 Blows, Sunset Boulevard. Those are some of my favorite from that decade.
Hmm.
But it's like that's mostly the extent of the ones I would give 4.5 or 5 stars.
Yeah.
Then I said, let me look at my top 100 list. And I went
Hmm.
in my top 100 list and I counted by decade. And the
Wow.
decade that pops up in my top 100 list the most is the 2010s.
Hmm.
This is not a surprise because that's kind of like when I was growing up getting into
Hmm.
movies, these were the ones that I saw in the theater. And I have 30 movies from the 2010s in my top
Hmm.
100. So a
Hmm.
lot. It's like heavily biased towards recent stuff. But
Hmm.
again, that's like the nostalgia stuff that like kind of formed me as I was shaping my movie taste. But then I felt
Oh.
like that can't be right because I don't think the 2010s is really my favorite era. I think it
Hmm.
just happens to have most of my favorite movies, but there's also a lot of terrible movies.
Hmm.
So then I just went into my top 20 and I counted from there. And it turns out that 11 of the movies from my top 20 of all time are from 2000 to 2009. So that like
Nice.
early
Yeah.
2000s era, I think is truly what my favorite decade is.
Hmm.
Just the whole energy, it's kind of nostalgic for me. It's a little bit cringy. It's a little bit like unapologetically goofy. Like I
Hmm.
think of like every genre from that era, whether it be like rom-coms or from that era or even like action movies, like the early Fast and Furious stuff. There's just like an energy to the early 2000s that I'm very nostalgic for and
Hmm.
will always love. So that's my favorite decade is the 2000s.
I really appreciate the work you've done for this because I think that must be the most amount of work anybody's ever put into this, to be honest, just to actually manually count through their top 100 and then through their top 20. So, wow. Thank you so much for that. And
Sure.
just yeah. See, when and letterbox stats are amazing, aren't they? Because like
Hmm.
I have the same. It's not an issue, but I have the same thing happen to me when I would pull all my all time stats. My three favorite decades based on my rating is 1940s, 1950s, and then 1930s. Because yeah, I've only seen the great ones. So it's mostly like 5 or 4.5 stars.
Yeah.
So yep, it's the same issue. It's not the real issue. So yeah.
Hmm. Yes, what a
So
burden we bear.
exactly, cinephiles, we
Hmm.
we create a path for others to follow. Well, yeah, maybe you. I'm not, nobody follows me.
Hmm.
Anyway,
Oh no.
so I know you're a wholesome guy and you didn't have many hot takes about life, which is fine. So what about some movies?
Yeah, I've got a couple movie hot takes.
Tell me.
Uh, my this is a pretty bad one. My
Okay.
hot take is that the Gareth Edwards Godzilla movie is the best Godzilla movie. Um,
Even -1, even considering -1.
I think so, but give me a
Wow.
year or two because I've only seen Godzilla minus one once. And here's the thing.
Okay.
Obviously, Godzilla minus one is probably better. Like
Hmm.
I know that. I'm
Hmm.
not a dummy. But for me personally, so I
Yeah.
say best, but really I mean favorite.
Yeah.
Weirdly, I feel nostalgic for the 2014 Godzilla, but I think to me that movie does something that everybody complains about this. The number one thing people complain about with this movie is my favorite thing about the movie, which is it withholds Godzilla for like an
Mhm,
hour. I love that because when he first steps onto the screen, I think this is his first moment. Is it in the airport when you just see his feet like stomping behind the glass?
I think
That's one of
so.
that's one of the first moments you see him.
Hmm.
I get chills because it's like you become so accustomed to, I mean, I know you see like other creatures and stuff too, but
Hmm.
like you become so accustomed to the rhythm of the movie and seeing it from the ground level that just seeing like outside the window those huge stompers gives
Hmm.
me chills. And I think they nail the final battle with him when he's doing the atomic breath and everything.
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. I remember being in the theater and feeling like I was just levitating out of my seat watching that. The
Hmm.
score is really good. It's Alexander Desplat, which is
Ooh.
ridiculous, like who does that score. And it's really cool and goes like crazy hard for this composer who I think of typically does like more artsy type of movies,
Yeah.
like with like Wes Anderson and such. Um, I think Bryan Cranston is great in the moments that he's in the movie. I understand people don't love that he gets killed off, but I just can't, it just doesn't bother me.
Hmm.
I don't think I don't know if I had seen Breaking Bad by that point. I can't remember, but it just didn't bother me when I first watched it, and so I just kind of accepted that that was what the movie was, rather
Hmm.
than trying to say something that I wish it had been, even when it wasn't going for that. Aaron Taylor Johnson and Elizabeth Olsen, I think are fine. They're probably the least interesting thing about the movie,
Hmm.
but also the like parachuting sequence, which is like in the trailer.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, like it is the coolest looking thing in like a blockbuster in like forever. It's
Hmm.
so awesome and there are just so many shots I can think of in that movie that I love so much. And for me, like I loved Godzilla minus one.
Hmm.
Godzilla minus one is the one that's gonna take it over probably within a couple
Hmm.
years, but for me it's just like the sort of overwhelming feeling I get from the 2014 Godzilla
Hmm.
is just like the sense of scale. Is it Gareth Edwards, right?
Yeah.
Who directed that? Yeah, he's so good at that, even in movies that I don't love, like Rogue One or The Creator. Like he's
Hmm.
so good at the scale. Sorry, I've talked for a long time about it, but that's
No,
my hot
well,
take.
it's about
Yeah,
you. It's about you. Don't apologize for that. And also, on this podcast, it's not really that hot of a take because I'm actually, I would probably put Godzilla minus one above it.
yeah,
However, I have a weird soft spot for that 2014 Godzilla 2. Even though many
hmm,
didn't really like it, I loved it. So, and then as far as easily the best American Godzilla, like no competition. We've
yeah,
gotten, what is it, four, five movies now? Well, there's a fifth one I think coming out this year.
hmm,
And it seems like, let's pair up these two big monsters and let them fight, which again could be a great spectacle. Will it be will it be anything remotely interesting to Godzilla minus one or 2014 Godzilla Zan? Probably not, but we'll see. Maybe they'll surprise us all, and maybe we're like, oh damn, nobody's expected this to happen, but hey, it's happened. So
yeah.
what are your other hot take? Because you mentioned you have several, so let's hear them.
Yeah, this one, I mean, anybody who's listens to me knows this, but I think M. Night Shyamalan is a great director, and he's one of my favorite directors. If I'm ranking directors, if I'm being honest, he's probably top five for me, just because like his vibes are
Hmm.
perfect for me, and like the early Sixth Sense through the Village, basically that sort of energy is formative for me.
Hmm.
Like if I made movies, I would want them to be like that, basically.
Hmm.
I think rather than being a director who's hit or miss, I would describe him as a director who is really good, who just had like a couple misfires in the middle. That's like his career to
Hmm.
me. I
Hmm.
think his last few movies have been pretty good. I think Split's great. Like great,
Yes.
great. I love Split. Glass, when I first watched it, was really disappointing on a story level, but I think that's because there's I think recently, like in the past 10 years, there's I would argue this is kind of a hot take within a hot take. I think
Okay.
there's been too much focus on story by like the Letterboxd crowd or by
Hmm.
movie reviewers and not enough focus on just the energy of a movie, the filmmaking,
The vibes.
the vibes. Yeah. Glass is brilliant in every single respect except the story. That's
Hmm.
how I feel pretty much. It looks outstanding. The way the camera moves is incredibly unique, and he genuinely like innovates in terms of the way he shoots things. With Old too, he innovates.
Hmm.
Um, and with Knock at the Cabin. And it's like I just find it very hard to sympathize with the people who complain about Shyamalan when he's like one of the only people who's trying to do something different with the medium.
Mm-hmm.
Like this is a basic example now because a lot of movies do this upside down shot. But do you remember in Midsummer when the camera just tilts and turns upside
Yeah.
down as they're driving on the highway really slowly? I remember watching that in the theater and being like, that's so cool. Why don't more movies do that? And now a
Mm-hmm.
lot of movies have done the upside down shot thing, but it's
Mm-hmm.
like movies have been around like 100 years. In the first like 50 year 100 like 20, 30 years at least now, but
Yep.
like in the first like 40 to 50 years, there's tons of experimentation because it's literally the first time you've ever done that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
What like genuine innovations in cinematography have we seen in like the last 20 years? Not a ton. Most of the innovations are like technology, I feel, in
Mm-hmm.
terms of well, cinematography, like I guess in the cameras used, but like just in terms of the framing, Shyamalan to me is like one of the people who's genuinely boundary pushing there. And I
Mm-hmm.
just get so excited every time I see one of his movies. So I don't know. I love Shyamalan. That's hot take number two.
If this was 2012, I would be like, nah. But since he's managed to return and did, and even though I think I'm not as high on Knock at the Cabin or Old as many might be, I still actually enjoyed both. And no, I think you're right because, and I think to
Mhm.
your point about camera work, I think the problem is not even that he's the only one who does this. The problem is the modern Hollywood doesn't care. The modern Hollywood because they want to wow you with CGI, and every blockbuster is now over reliant on like CGI, which they don't have much time to do properly. So therefore, it doesn't look great. So yeah, it's always a nice, fresh breath of air. Like when somebody like Shyamalan tries to do something new, and it's like, you know what? Let's do this. Let's do this camera show. Let's do this. And as long as there's a sense or there's a point to that, rather than, hey, look at me, I can spin the camera. I like it. I like it.
Yeah, he did the show Servant too for 4 seasons.
Mm,
It's not a perfect show, but again, there's just so many interesting things about it.
mm-hmm,
Um and I he's a very interesting guy in interviews too. Like he takes his work very seriously and thinks very deeply about like how everything is going to come across that he films.
mm-hmm,
And that's part of what like attracts me to him as a director is he's very sincere. Like everything
mm-hmm.
is done with the best of intentions. He doesn't want to make a bad movie. He wants to
Yeah.
make great movies. But like he talks about the Lauren Ambrose character of Servant, he said the wallpaper has stripes that are facing this direction or something, and the costume department he asked if they could give her an outfit that had stripes facing a different direction than the
Mm,
wallpaper, so
mm-hmm,
that it could convey this sort of inner conflict that she's feeling. And then over the course of the season, her costume slowly starts to change to become more in harmony with the wallpaper. It might be the other way around. It might be it becomes less in harmony, but like he was talking about this and I'm like, "Oh my gosh, this guy thinks about like every little detail in a way that like I guarantee you most of the blockbuster filmmakers now don't think about
mm-hmm.
things on that minute of a level." And he's huge with color too. Like
Yeah.
all of his movies is like colors galore and everything has a meaning. I don't know. He's just so interesting to me.
And again, even as somebody who's not as high, I kind of liked it, but I'm not as high on Knock at the Cabin because I
Yeah.
think it could have been done slightly better. But actually, the execution, like story-wise, I mean, like the execution, I don't think I could knock it technically because the movie is actually good. Like, yeah, I had a problem with story and how that kind of unfolded, but that's a discussion for another time.
Yeah.
So you have one or two more hot
I
takes?
have one more
Tell
hot
me.
take. My last hot take is Crimson Peak is my favorite Guillermo del Toro movie.
Oh, damn. I like it. I don't agree, but I like it. All right, let's hear it.
I should rewatch Pan's Labyrinth. I know.
Hmm.
And to be honest, like most of Guillermo del Toro's movies are like at about a similar place for me. So it's not
Hmm.
by a ton,
Yeah.
but it's just is easily just my favorite because I like the gothic atmosphere.
Hmm.
And just the everything about the way it looks, the castle setting, even like Tom Hiddleston and Jessica Chastain and Mia Wasikowska are just perfect for the energy of like the gothic energy of the movie.
Yeah.
I love that it's just like an old school sort of ghost story that's also kind of a love story. Like it's not like a straightforward horror movie, and I kind of love that.
Hmm.
Um, I've just never seen a movie quite like it. It's especially at least in the past like 30 years or so. I mean, like one
Hmm.
of the running themes is I love like when directors nowadays do things that like most other directors just aren't doing. Like
Yeah.
Like this is just not the kind of movie that really should have gotten made in the past 20 years because it's
Hmm.
not really popular or cool, but it is to me.
Hmm.
So I don't know. I love it. I love the snowy look. We already said I like winter better than summer, so
Yes.
my dream home.
The Crimson Peak, I liked it, and the best recommendation I can give to this movie is I start the movie and my girlfriend comes into the room and she is not a horror girl at all. So when she was like, "Oh, this is a horror movie," I was like, "Yep, okay, I'm gonna go soon." And then
Mhm.
she starts to watch the movie, and then 20 minutes goes by, and I'm like, "What are you still doing here? Like, I'm not kicking you out, but the scary stuff will probably happen soon." And she was like, I know, but I kind of want to keep watching. I was like, well, sit down next to me, come here. So, and we actually watched it, and yeah, well, and also she has a huge weakness for Jessica Chastain, which who can blame her? Like, as I said, like she's as straight as they come, but like Jessica Chastain is one of those that's like, yeah, that's her queen, and I'm like, she is. So, you know, girl knows what she likes. Okay, those are
Yes.
some interesting things. I like it. I like it. So, with that said, we can move now to the underrated part of this podcast. So, I'll ask you, Foster, who do you think is the most underrated actor we have right now?
So for most of mine here, it's kind of half underrated, half just underseen.
Mm-hmm.
I figure like underrated kind of falls within underseen because um, they're properly rated by the people who know who they are, but like by
Mm-hmm.
the public at large, they're underrated because they don't know who they are. They've
Yeah.
seen them in movies, but they don't talk about them ever. This is the easiest one for me of the five questions here.
Mm-hmm.
Was actor. It's Alex Lawther. Do you know who this is?
That doesn't ring any bells to me. Okay.
So the first time I ever saw him, he's like about my age, like maybe
Mm-hmm.
he's like a couple years older, but the first thing I saw him in was an episode of Black Mirror called Shut Up and Dance. Have you seen Black Mirror?
Yes. Yes.
This is the one where the kid gets the message from his computer and then he goes
Mm-hmm.
on this kind of like
Mm-hmm.
trail that he has to follow. So, first of all, in this episode, this is my favorite episode of Black Mirror. It is hugely like it is like very tense and visceral and
Mm-hmm.
stressful the whole
Mm-hmm.
time. His performance is very good, and I had never seen him before. And I get like really into like niche British actors. They're just like that's my cup of tea, basically. There's the scene when he goes into a bank and he's supposed to rob the bank. He doesn't want to
Mm-hmm.
rob the bank, but he's being told like you have to rob the bank, otherwise I'm gonna release basically this footage of you doing some inappropriate deeds. Um, and he is just like crumbling as he's holding this gun and he's shaking
Mm-hmm.
and there's snot like coming out of his face. And it's like the kind of acting where you can tell they didn't just sprinkle water on his face,
Yeah.
before the take. He's like actually doing it. And sometimes like all it takes for me is one scene and then now an actor's just on my radar forever and I'm watching them. I love actors, by the way. That's my
Mm-hmm.
favorite thing about movies is acting. I'm very interested in performance. So
Mm-hmm.
I loved him in that episode. And then at the end of the episode, there's a twist, a reveal about his character that is
Yep.
incredibly shocking and upsetting. But what's more upsetting is that you really liked him throughout the episode. And then there's
Mm-hmm.
this thing that's revealed about him that really changes the way you think about him. And
Mm-hmm.
this is like, if you go on the internet, this episode is very debated, like about what you're supposed to feel about this character.
Mm-hmm.
I just think he played it perfectly.
Yeah.
And played it so perfectly that there is still a gray area there as to how you're supposed to feel about him by the end of the episode, I believe at least.
Mm-hmm.
Again, there's some things that he does that are like not, you
Yeah, yeah,
know,
yeah, yeah.
good, just to put it lightly. But um, like I don't know, I just found it to be like a very interesting character for
Mm-hmm.
this kid to take on, and he's so young and he crushed it. And so then. Like a year or two later, there's the end of the effing world on Netflix. I'm censoring it,
Oh,
but
is that him?
it is him,
Ah,
and
okay, I've seen that.
he's like the co-lead with Jessica Barden. I
Mm-hmm.
loved this show, and it's a
Mm-hmm.
completely different vibe. He plays like a psychopath who like
Mm-hmm.
doesn't have a lot of emotion. He has this very flat like British affect to him, and is very funny and is it's a surprisingly meaningful show, and it has
Mm-hmm.
great like old classic music throughout as well.
Mm-hmm.
I loved this show. It's only 2 seasons. It's very short. It's like 20
Yeah.
minute episodes on Netflix. Then I was like, okay, so this kid is incredible, and I have to look at what other movies he's been in. So he was in The Imitation Game, and he
Oh.
played young Alan Turing. And so I went back and rewatched Imitation Game,
Hmm.
and there's this scene where young Alan Turing, played by Alex Lothar, has to get told that his like close friend, parentheses, like almost lover, um, was killed or killed himself, I believe.
Hmm.
And the facial reaction on his face when he learns this about his friend is absolutely heartbreaking because he can't like reveal the
Yeah.
extent of his connection with this friend. Um, but so it's such a complex like web of emotions, and he's probably like 15 or something in
Hmm.
this scene, and it's like makes me cry almost watching that movie. So that one blew me away. Then I sought out this movie called Ghost Stories, which is a horror anthology with Martin Freeman.
Mm.
And there's three stories. It's like half an hour, half an hour, half an hour. He's the middle segment, Alex Lothar. It's basically like a paranormal investigator goes to different homes to like investigate these occurrences. And
Hmm.
Alex Lothar opens the door and is like shaking and has this like intensity up to 11 the whole time, but it's like not in like a he's an actor. It's almost like you sort of walked into this guy's house and you feel like I need to get out like right now. Like, do you remember in Zodiac when Jake Gyllenhaal goes to the guy's basement?
Oh yeah.
It's like that kind of feeling where you're
Hmm.
like, this guy is unwell. I need to leave right now. I need to get out of this room right now. And the
Hmm.
performance is so fantastic. It's my favorite segment of the three from that movie. And
Hmm.
then he was in The Last Duel a couple years ago. He played the kind of
Mm.
snooty young king, like the basically Joffrey type of king.
I still haven't seen that one, but it's on my ever-growing watch list.
Yeah, so he's very good in it. It's not like a huge part, but it's just
Hmm.
another like he can kind of do anything. And
Hmm.
then last year, he was in, or a couple years ago, he was in Andor. He plays, did you see
Oh,
Andor?
yes, yes.
So he plays the one of the rebels, the guy who wrote his manifesto.
Oh, okay.
Um, and I think he's fantastic in that. And to be honest, that character makes me cry.
Hmm.
Not because I not like even if I didn't know who this guy was. Like at the end, the like effect that manifesto had, as we realized in the final episode. Um, it's just a very meaningful character and a very meaningful show to me. And I part of why I love that show so much is they get like legit actors to
Hmm.
fill these small parts. Like it's so good. Anyways, he is my most underrated actor. I've never heard another person in my life talk about
Hmm.
him. I think he's fantastic and is great in every single thing I've seen from him. And he's like a, if he's in the movie, I'm watching it sort of
Yeah,
actor. So
yeah.
that's my pick. I talked for like 10 minutes on that. I'm
That's
sorry, but
good. That's
there
great.
you go.
No, that's well, it's all about you. So, that's great. And honestly, I didn't even realize I've seen the Black Mirror episode, which yeah, that's a what a twist on that episode. But also
Hmm.
I've seen the end of the fucking world, and it's a great show. It's a great show, and I didn't actually realize that was the guy from, the kid from the Black Mirror episode because he's only been in one. So no, but he's okay. I need to go through some, the ghost stories I have not seen. So I need
It's
to.
good. You should watch it. Yeah.
I'll again. The queue is so long and my life is so short. You know how it is. So wow. You know, I love how prepared he came. Like, appreciate that. Just so appreciate it. Who do you think
Thank
is
you.
the most underrated actress?
Okay, I found this one harder to do because
Hmm.
most of the people I came up with are like decently well known anyways, so I
Hmm.
wanted to go more obscure. I tried to go real like obscure with these just to like genuinely underrated.
Hmm.
Sarah Lancashire is who I went with. She's a
Hmm.
British actress. She's mostly a TV actress. She's in this
Hmm.
TV show I love called Happy Valley, which is 3 seasons long and is
Hmm.
genuinely um up there along with my favorite TV performances I've ever seen.
Hmm.
So for me, the like greatest TV performances, I still haven't seen The Sopranos or The Wire. Those are like the two big blind spots for
Oh,
me,
great
which I'm
shows.
sure I'd love. But like Breaking Bad,
Hmm.
Bryan Cranston, Succession, like most of the people in that show. I
Hmm.
love Rami Malek and Mr. Robot. I think that's one of the best TV performances of all time. And
Hmm.
Sarah Lancashire for Happy Valley. Those for me is like the top bar of TV performances. I've not seen her in much else apart from that,
Hmm.
but she by the way, she plays a cop and she's like in her 50s or maybe early 60s. She's kind of no nonsense. She's very funny, but she's like going through quite a lot because the case connects to her personal life in an interesting way, but
Hmm.
it's really just like very nuanced, incredible performance. And I think she's like beloved in Britain, but like nobody knows her over here.
Uh,
She was in an episode of Oh yeah, you look like you're about to say
No, no,
something.
no, no. I was gonna say like I live here. I don't think I ever heard of her, to be honest. I need to actually look up,
Okay.
how she looks like. But no, please continue.
Sure. She was in, I realized, an episode of Doctor Who that I had seen like a
Mm,
couple years before. It was season 4, episode 1. It was like the last season, I think, with David Tennant, and Catherine Tate is the companion at the beginning, and she plays Miss
mm,
Foster, which is good name,
yeah.
first of all. But she's like a fun villainous character in that. And to be honest, when I watched that episode of Doctor Who, she didn't stand out to me. It's only in retrospect, being like kind of like
Mm-hmm.
what you were saying with Alex Lawther. Oh, I've seen this person in a couple things. I just never connected the dots that they're the same person.
Yeah.
That like gives me life, that feeling. Whenever that happens, I think it's the coolest thing in the world. And she's completely different.
Mm-hmm.
And even just like looking at pictures, like she played Julia Childs in like a Julia Childs show a couple years ago. Like everything she's done, it seems like she's kind of a sneaky chameleon too. So that's my most underrated actress.
I was gonna mention, so I quickly had a look through her IMDb filmography, and I'm like, okay, I've seen her in one movie yesterday. Apparently, she was one of the groupies. I was like, oh yeah, I guess I remember her. And then I spotted the Julia show based on Julia Childs. And funny enough, that streams on this one platform that always, when you play a movie or TV show, they give you a quick ad for what else is on that platform. And that trailer for Julia Child came on. I was like, who's this actress? But that kind of looks funny. It looks kind of good. So now knowing that and knowing and the Happy Valley, I've never heard of. I'll be honest, I've never heard of that show, even though I do live here and it's a British show. So shame on me. I okay. I need to get around. I wonder if because my girlfriend, if it's British and there's a crime, she's watched it. Like she's watched the entire. Like I'm not even joking. She's watched the entire all the Hercule Poirot with like a Suchet. She's
Yeah.
watched like there's a Father Brown. It's a crime solving father. Like actual like priest. And it's like 11 seasons of that. She's watched them all. Like if it's British and there's a some sort of crime and there's somebody solving that crime, she's in. Like horrors, no. But British crime,
But murder.
drama. Yeah, but
Yeah.
yeah, murder, all that stuff
Who
is just
cares? Yeah.
yeah, exactly. No, that's a great pick. So, what about director? Who do you think is the most underrated director?
Yeah, I'm basically an honorary Brit is what I'm learning here with my list.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going with he's not underrated. He's very properly rated by people who know who he is. He's gotten Oscar nominations a bunch, but like nobody no real people know who he is. Mike Lee, um
Ah.
who's directed. So I first saw Vera Drake because so when I was younger, I would go to the library every week and I would get a big stack of movies and then I would just
Mm-hmm.
watch them over the course of the next week.
Mm-hmm.
I would always see these movies for adults and be like, I wonder what that movie's like, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And one that always caught my eye was Vera Drake because Imelda Staunton was on the cover and I only knew her as Umbridge from Harry Potter.
Ah.
And I really wonder what she's like in a movie that's not Harry Potter. And
Mm-hmm.
so then a few years ago, I watched this movie and it's one of the best performances I've ever seen.
Mm-hmm.
And she's completely different from Umbridge because she's a great actress.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was like, I just love the way this movie is filmed and written. And I decided to watch some of his other movies. Secrets and Lies is his biggest movie, and was like the most successful at the Oscars. I think it was 1996, I want to say.
Mm-hmm.
And Brenda Blethyn is the lead in that, along with Marianne Jean-Baptiste are like the two co-leads, and they give incredible performances, especially Brenda Blethyn. But he
Mm-hmm.
has like this sort of troupe of actors that he uses a lot over and over again. Like Timothy Spall pops up in a lot of his movies. A lot of like great British actors, so perfect for me. There's a movie he did called Naked with David Thewlis, which is David Thewlis's best performance. He did a
Mm-hmm.
movie called Topsy Turvy with Jim Broadbent and some other people, and it's probably my favorite Jim Broadbent performance. He did a movie called Mr. Turner more recently with Timothy Spall. It's Timothy Spall's best performance. And the
Mm-hmm.
basic theme is like every time I see him work with an actor, it's like their best performance they've ever given.
Mm-hmm.
He's really interesting. I learned after watching a couple of his movies that his movies come about through improv. So
Oh.
he has his actors like come together. They have like a rough idea of what the scene is going to be, and then they improv stuff. He
Mm-hmm.
watches them do their improv. They do the scene over and over and over again. And through the improv, he then compiles the best bits of the improv into a script. And then that script is what they'll film. So it's like the movie comes through improv, but the movie's not improvised, but it sort of feels naturalistic in a way
Mm-hmm.
that very few other movies do. It's
Hmm.
like you watch one of Mike Lee's movies and you're like, oh wow, so every other movie I've seen in my life is just fake, compared to this one because it just hits like so perfectly. So that's my
Yeah.
pick.
Okay, see, so yet again I had to go through IMDb because I've heard of him, and I was like, I'm sure I've seen one or two of his movies. And no, he directed apparently 26 movies, and I have not rated any single one of them. And I'm like, am I even like I feel like after this podcast I have to have my cinephile card, revoked or something because this
Well,
is
you've seen
just
more than
shame.
me.
Yeah, but it looks like I'm watching the wrong movies. No, like
Well, you
this I need to catch up on this guy because yeah, like I've heard about Mr. Turner. Like, because yeah, Timothy Spall is supposed to be amazing in that.
he's
So
so good. Yeah.
mm-hmm. And the other ones like the Oscar winners, yeah, I heard about those, but yet again they never like popped up anywhere. So I'm like, I need to fix that. I need to fix that. So I know this one is difficult. Because there's so many movies. But is there any particular one or two, or maybe more, that stick out to you
Yeah.
that being very underrated movies?
Yeah, this is a complete 180 turn
All
here.
right.
Terminator Salvation is my
Wow.
pick for underrated movie. To be fair, it's been a couple years since I
Mm-hmm.
last watched it, but I watched slash rewatched all the Terminator movies like a year or two ago. For me, this is the kind of movie that, like with hindsight, I like it
Mm-hmm.
a lot more than I maybe did when I first watched it, just
Mm-hmm.
because you compare it to the stuff we're getting now. Even the other Terminator sequels,
Mm-hmm.
Genesis, I think is trash. I
Yeah.
hate that movie
Yeah.
like with my entire being. Dark Fate, I think, is pretty good, but it's
Yeah.
just like it's a little basic, honestly, where it's like, yeah, that's kind of what I thought it'd be. And it's good. It has good action scenes,
Mm-hmm.
performances are good, but it's just like not super inspired to me.
Mm-hmm.
Especially coming from, I love the first two Terminator movies.
Mm-hmm.
Terminator 3 is pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
Terminator Salvation is the only one now when you look at the whole row of movies that actually tried to do something different.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not perfect, but like to be honest, I think the action in that movie looks kind of great. And
Mm-hmm.
I think the way it's shot, I know people hate the like ugly yellow filter that's over it and everything.
Yeah.
Doesn't bother me. I just don't care. It's like
Mm-hmm.
for me again, it's a mid 2000s thing, so I'm so used to it because I've seen it so much.
And it also falls within your 2009 thing, doesn't it?
Exactly. Yep.
Mm.
Christian Bale to me is not a perfect John Connor, but I still like admire the intensity of him in that movie. He's just like so insane and intense and shouting the whole time, and it's just like kind of hard not to get invested in Christian Bale, both on and off set, shouting up a,
Yep.
a storm. Yep. And also Anton Yelchin plays Kyle Reese, and I
Mm.
actually love that performance. So Anton
Mm.
Yelchin is like another one of my actors that I'll watch like anything that he's in just because I've
Well,
seen a few of his things and I watched the documentary about him after he died
I
called
was
Love
gonna
Antosha.
say that's now unfortunately became much easier given he's not gonna make much more because
Yeah.
unfortunately we lost him way too soon. It's such a shame. Such a shame. But Terminator, okay, so like I need to rewatch it because I've only watched it once in a cinema actually because I was hyped. Like the trailer had me hyped. And I left the cinema, even well, 2009, I would have been 18. Yeah, about 17, 18. Even my gullible 18-year-old me was like, this is kind of average. Like I didn't hate it, but I just thought it was like, all right. Like I thought you're gonna say Terminator 3 is underrated, which I would actually agree because I think many people shit on that. And coming off first two, obviously yes, there's a dip in quality, but like me watching the first three back to back to back, I was like, I can see what they were going for there.
It's
Like,
pretty good. Yeah.
and I was like yeah, it does it touch, the like the first one was a groundbreaking for what it did, and the second one, turned it into a much higher gear, and it was even more groundbreaking. And I'm like, yeah, was third one, groundbreaking by any means? No, no, it wasn't. Was it as bad of a movie as many people rate it to be? And it's like, I don't think it is. And I do need to rewatch Salvation because yeah, I've only watched it once in a cinema, and I only remember the yellow filter as you pointed out, and I also remember the Christian Bale shouting off camera or the leak we've had. And have you ever seen because of course it's the internet, have you ever seen the musical version of that?
No, I have not.
It's the internet. So after this podcast is done, I strongly encourage you to go on YouTube and search for Christian Bale Terminator Salvation, like, I don't know, music or something. And
Okay.
somebody took out the clip because it's like a 2 minute clip, right? And they just took out the best bits, quote unquote, and they just remixed it. And it's kind of a catchy fucking tune. I was like,
Okay.
it's honestly, I'm like, this
I'm
shouldn't slap this
excited.
hard. This shouldn't slap this hard. Okay. Any other movies you wanna, hype as an underrated or?
That was it.
All right, all right.
Yeah.
I like it. What about some TV shows?
Ooh, TV shows. I put Rings of Power just because I
Hmm.
felt like that was one that came out, and then everybody kind of hates on that show, and I think it's like really not that bad.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like by comparison to Lord of the Rings, but like if you just had this without Lord of the Rings, it's like a decent show.
Mm-hmm.
I think what it is the first half, for me at least when I was watching it, is so slow that
Mm-hmm.
it's just like takes forever for it to get going. But I feel like the second half has some really, really cool moments that I think not everybody stuck around for.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I really liked it as a whole season. I also think there's some great performances in there. I think Elrond and Durin are really like perfect castings. And the thing is, if you bounced out after 2 or 3 episodes, you wouldn't know that. But
Yeah.
like you sort of like grow, it's a TV show, you grow an attachment to them over time. You can't
Mm-hmm.
expect like everything to be wrapped up within the first episode or two.
Mm-hmm.
I still think it's not perfect. Like the first couple episodes are slow, like I said, but like the effects are amazing. I mean, they dropped like $8 bajillion on this show. Like
Yep.
it looks perfect. And the music is the big thing. It's Bear McCreary who did the score.
Mm-hmm.
Truly like one of the great TV scores of all time, I think. Anyone who's actually listens through the score can vouch for that. It
Mm-hmm.
is it is like an impossible task to follow Howard Shore's Lord of the Rings.
Mm-hmm.
he is It is close. I have to tell you.
Okay.
The themes, there are about 8 different themes that I could hum for you right now for
Mm-hmm.
different locations or people in the show. And they are unique. They have a different feel to them. And by the time you finish the whole first season, you can hum some of them too, to the point that like I started getting emotional, being like, oh my gosh, I didn't realize I was attached to this storyline until now. And now I'm
Mm-hmm.
hearing the music and I'm sort of feeling the feelings.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. We'll see what happens with the next couple seasons. It wasn't super well received, but that's why I say it's underrated, I think.
Yeah. I have not watched the show because I need to, and I'll second time I'm admitting it on this podcast. If you were to go on Letterboxd and look at Lord of the Rings and my rating, you'd be shocked because it sits at a whopping half a star for all three movies. Oh, very nice. Foster is just showing me his wall decor. So, and as I'm admitting this, so I think I'm about to lose him because he's just gonna disconnect. But before you do, let me clarify, as I have in the past. So this was my teenage edgy me about when I was 15 or so. These movies were all over the place. And I think at the time I was just in this like edgy phase where I thought I know much better than everybody. Like a regular teenager. And I really didn't like them at all. So this is one of my goals for this year is to rewatch all three movies and actually get to watch Hobbit movies because of that I have not actually watched the Hobbit movies either, and to actually evaluate them, the word I cannot pronounce, on their actual merit because I know they are much better than half a star. At least 2 stars, I think. I think. No, but and also to your point, many people bump, like they stuck around for like 2 or 3 episodes and that's it. I am a strong believer if you're watching a TV show, give it at least one season.
Mhm.
Like anything can change. Like there's a famous example. I don't know if you watched BoJack Horseman.
I haven't, no.
That's fine because that you don't actually need to because the first half of that first season is so different than what the rest of the show is about, and even the second half of that show. One of the like famous magazine actually changed its way how they mark TV shows because the reviewer only had a time to watch the first half, so he thought it's another generic animated TV show. So it's like, many people complained because he didn't get to the actual mental health side of the show, which is, that's the most famous. BoJack Horseman is like, very depressed horse man.
Mhm.
And it's a great show. It talks about a lot of heavy issues and heavy stuff, and it does it eloquently, it does it beautifully. and that critic, he went back, and from C it became A because he was like, yeah, okay, okay, now I get it, now I get it, because yeah, I've actually finished the first season, so I'm a big believer of before you rate any TV show, at least stick with one season. Like after one season, fair enough. Like okay, we're only here for a limited amount of time, so fair.
Yeah.
Anyway, you've been talking a lot, and I feel bad. So let's flip the tables. Do you have any questions for me?
Oh man, I didn't know this was coming. I'm probably just
Ooh,
gonna ask you for some of the movies that are the questions you've asked me.
okay.
Did you say officially what your favorite decade was? I know you talked about your Letterboxd averages,
Mhm.
but what is your favorite decade?
I think my favorite decade would be like I'm a cliche kind of guy, so either 70s or 90s. Because I grew up
Okay.
on 90s. Like, I'm a child of 90s. So like I watched a lot of them. But also now going back to the 70s, I understand why many giants of
Yeah.
cinema love 70s, especially like Hollywood, 70s. But also outside of Hollywood, like France, Italy, all these like places, just some great movies there.
Yeah. Okay, speed round. Who's your favorite director?
Ooh, basic between Spielberg, Scorsese, and I'll say Lynch, David Lynch, because I like
Oh,
it
okay.
weird. Oh yeah,
What's your favorite Spielberg movie?
favorite Spielberg movie between Raiders and Jurassic Park. I have to say,
Okay.
maybe Saving Private. Oh, it's fucking tough. It's like what's my favorite child? I don't have any kids, so nobody.
Favorite Scorsese.
Favorite scores. I'll say the one. See, no, it's not my favorite, but that's the one I can actually vividly remember the most. Is Wolf of Wall Street. However, I've only watched like Casino and all of these just once, and I'm due for a rewatch because that's been
Hmm.
10 plus years. So the only one besides Killers of the Flowers Moon, and I also need to rewatch that one to get my thoughts even sorted out. I think vividly, or you know what? Hugo, I know, but Hugo, hear me out,
Hmm.
criminally underappreciated. Like, it's been nominated for Oscars and all, yes. I feel like many people don't appreciate enough the kind of love letter to the old cinema that movie is. And
Hmm.
I love Hugo.
Yep, me too. Favorite David Lynch movie.
Mulholland Drive. That's like
Okay.
my top four movie of all times. Like, it's, if
Okay.
have you seen it?
Yeah.
That like it's a no matter what you think about it, it stays with you, and it has a vibe. It's a vibe movie. It has a
Hmm.
certain vibe that puts you in, and the more time you rewatch it, the closer I think you are getting to some sort of truth about what's actually happening. And there are
Hmm.
several different interpretations by many famous filmmakers, even. So, choose your poison and stick with it. But I just rewatched it recently, and I bought this beautiful 4K restoration, and just crisp as beautiful.
That's one I've only seen once, and I really need to rewatch it like a few times just to kind of unpack it more.
I've seen it now 4 times or 5 times, 5 times, which I don't really rewatch movies that often because I always feel like there's so much to watch for
Yeah,
me
me too.
to rewatch movies. But this one is worth it. Like each time it gets slightly better and slightly better and slightly better. And like, no, Lynch is my kind of fucked up, and I like it.
Do you have a favorite actor and actress?
Ooh, now. I would say now, like Jessica Chastain is up there, Emily Blunt, Scarlett Johansson. Talk about somebody who's been, because of maybe MCU, underutilized a bit, is ScarJo, and I loved her in Asteroid City, and I'm so happy she's going back to those like roles because
Hmm.
her role is in Jojo Rabbit is great, and I just wish one day she will grab that Oscar. And for the actor,
She
it's
should have
hard.
gotten it for Marriage Story, by the way.
The marriage, well, yeah, don't even get
Would she
just.
lose to Renee Zellweger for Judy?
I think, well, now having seen Judy,
Yeah,
I have a feeling, first of all, she's actually great, but also
she is. Yeah.
I have a feeling the Academy are so fucking old. They remember Judy Garland. Like not all of them, obviously, but there are some members, they still remember her and they still feel guilty for everything she's been through. So I have a feeling it's like, is that the case? Because like the movie Judy has not been nominated, and I'm fact check me, but I'm pretty sure I'm right. Only one nomination was her. Only one win, her. Nothing else. Like not an actor, not the best movie, not the best director. It was only her.
Let's
Please,
see. I feel like maybe makeup and hairstyling. Let me see.
I.
Yep, one nomination extra, makeup and hairstyling, and
Oh,
that's it.
okay. Damn. Good. See, I'm glad to. I'm so happy to be fact checked. So yeah, no,
No, it's
and
fine.
an actor. It's hard to go against somebody like Tom Hardy, or
Yeah.
like see me 15 years ago. Like I would say Arnold Schwarzenegger, Sylvester Stallone, because I grew up on a lot of B movies from 80s, 90s. So like Rambo, like or First Blood. Sorry, First Blood is like one of my favorite movies of all time because Stallone is actually unironically great. Like if you haven't watched, it's the sequels that give Rambo the bad name, but the First Blood is actually fucking good, and it's not just he's got a lot of muscles and a lot of time to kill many people. Not really. So no, but yeah, it's hard to go against somebody like Tom Hardy. And now Paul Mescal seems to be kind of claiming his spot of the it man of the possibly next couple of years. So yeah.
Yeah, there it is.
Any do you any other questions, or did I satisfy you enough? Is
I
that
mean,
all good?
that's it movie wise. I mean, I feel like that's it. That's good for the podcast.
That's
I could
fine.
probably ask you more questions another time, but
All right. No,
I
all
think
right.
that covers it.
No, Foster, this has been a blast. I am so appreciative of you taking your time, out of your busy day. Also doing that
Ha ha
research.
ha 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 ha. It is not a busy day.
No, but still, and you did some research and on like props to you, man. Like appreciate it. Like so if people like what you said and want to follow you, which people you should follow Foster here, where can they do that? And where will you send them?
Basically, just Letterboxd. That's FOSTH101. That's where I ramble
Hmm.
about movies all day long.
Hmm. Are we not gonna plug any podcast you might be on?
I always forget to do that, and I am always like kind of embarrassed because I hate hearing myself talk. But yeah,
Okay.
weirdly, I have two podcasts that I'm a part of,
Yes.
neither of which are my podcasts really. I just kind of like got invited to be a part of them. So
Hmm.
it's like I get the easy part of the job, but I do Franchise Paradiso with Heath Lynch and Rowan Wood, two other movie people.
Hmm.
That's if you want like fun, like snobby bantering and arguing about like franchises and stuff. On the flip side, I do also see with Robert Bouffard, which is a little slower and still a little snarky, but talking
Yes.
about like lesser seen movies to coincide with the release of a new movie that's coming out each week. So take your pick your poison, basically.
Well, in a world where we don't have to pick and we can listen to both, you should because they are both excellent. Like
Thank you.
great in their own right. And you convinced me or not convinced me. You and Robert convinced me to listen and I'm not, I do not regret my choice. So I just need to catch up with the movie so I can listen to the older episodes. No, but
Sure.
and if people want to find me, on Letterboxd in Movies Lost or on my blog lostinmovies.co.uk. But as always, this podcast is part of SPDM Crew Podcast Media. Also, big shout out to HiFlyer Creative for designing my logo. To see what else they have happening, visit hiflyercreative.com. So until next time, bye bye.
Bye.